Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. The Giants are 1-4 on the season. They lost to the Saints in embarrassing fashion. And, they are a creative football team because every week, year after year, they find new ways to lose. 5 turnovers in one game it would be impressive if it wasn't atrocious. It was just a brutal game for the Giants. 5 turnovers on offense, no turnovers on defense. In fact, the one turnover that they actually got was negated because Che Banks got that DPI call like he does. So, the game obviously was awful. The reality is that if it was any other team who was better, it would not have been 26-14. It probably would have been about 46-14. So we have that going for us. But there were a couple things that went well. So I want to talk through that today, and then we'll get to a little bit of an injury update because in just a couple short days, the Giants take on the Eagles. So we have that to look forward to. But let's go ahead and talk about this. I want to start with the offensive line. I don't think I've seen a Giants quarterback have that much time to make decisions, get through all their reads, and throw the ball in years. The fact that they were able to do that, Jackson Dart had all the time in the world to decide whether or not he was going to run or throw or get through all of his reads and sit there and just wait for a wide receiver to get open so he could throw the ball was pretty incredible. So I think the offensive line has done a nice job. Towards the end, the Illuminor penalties were brutal. John Runyon had quite a few bad snaps, but overall, that's not why they lost the game. It's not why Dart ended up throwing a couple interceptions and fumbling the ball and why Scattaboo ended up fumbling. That's not why they lost. So I just want to say that I think overall the offensive line has done a really great job. And I think that, unfortunately it's getting wasted, right? Like we've had so many years where we're like, we could be winning football games if our offensive line was doing their job. And now the offensive line is doing their job and we're still not winning football games. So that's a problem. But I saw this amazing stat about Andrew Thomas and I wanted to share it because, Andrew Thomas is our knight in shining armor. Andrew Thomas throughout 3 full games so far, 0 sacks allowed, 0 quarterback hits allowed, 0 pressures allowed. Andrew Thomas, MVP of this football team, welcome. We missed you so desperately, and we're so happy to have you back. And I'm so devastated that we are going to waste an entire year of a healthy Andrew Thomas because that's the rate that this football team is going. But the offensive line did well. So we have that going for us. I'm glad that the offensive line is finally making some progress. Definitely a step in the right direction because at this point, we're focused on Jackson Dart, right? And being able to give him time to make plays as a rookie quarterback so he can learn and develop and grow is very important. So with that being said, let's talk about Jackson Dart because obviously the interceptions and the fumble. The fumble was his fault. The interceptions seems like miscommunications for the Jalen Hyatt one. And Bo Collins, I don't know what his problem was, but you can't just stop your route in the middle of it because you feel like it. So that's a problem. But I think Jackson Dart has done a nice job communicating. I think he's done a great job getting through his reads. For the most part, he's been relatively accurate with the balls that he has thrown. I've seen a couple that were too high, too low, but I think overall, he's done a nice job. I think he's also done a great job of taking off and taking advantage of seeing that open field and making plays. So, right, when his wide receivers are not open and he's gotten through his reads, he's taking off, making smart decisions with the ball, obviously outside of that fumble. But outside of that, his ball security has been good, and he's done a good job with that. The other thing I will say about Dart is I saw him slide a couple more times on Sunday, which I really appreciated, and I think that he's learning, right? We saw a lot of that throughout preseason where he wasn't sliding, and we like that competitive edge, but it comes to a point where, like John Gruden said repeatedly, you have to live to see the next down, and you can take hits, but you have to be smart about it. And I really feel like we saw that a lot this week with Jackson Dart. So I'm happy that I feel like he is making progress. I was a little disappointed watching some clips from the film. I feel like there were some players that were open in certain instances and he just didn't see them and he had ended up taking off. Now, like I said, progress. I want to see over the few games as that develops, that he starts, as he's going through his reads, he's seeing these players that are wide open, which leads me to my last point on the offense that I think was a good thing. The tight ends were used, and not only were they used, they all made plays. Do you know Daniel Bellinger, in his last 25 receptions since he's been on this football team, he has caught every single one of them? He's gone 25 for 25. And why we don't use him more, I don't know. But Daniel Bellinger, fantastic. So happy that we're using him. He really helped move the ball for this team and help them get down the field. And same thing with Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson had a really rough first game for the Giants, quite a few drops. And since then, he has turned it up and made some really nice plays. He's got 3 touchdowns in 2 games, and he's opened up the field and helped made some awesome plays for this offense. So I think he's done a great job. One honorable mention that I want to throw out is Cam Scatterbo and this running offense. I think they're finally hitting their stride where they're starting to run the ball successfully. Now, he didn't have a ton of yards. He had less than 60 rushing, but he's been an impressive back so far. He's been great in the run game and great in the pass game, and also great in the pass blocking game. He's picking up blitz and things like that. So, I think the running back room is coming together nicely. I would like to see Tyrone Tracy. I'm excited for him to be back. And if he's not back, then they better elevate Turbo. Now, let's move along to the defense, because the defense is getting ripped to shreds over this game. And while there were some bad penalties, there were some bad plays, some missed tackles, no pass rush, things like that, overall, the defense held the Saints team to 1 offensive touchdown. And if your defense does that in any normal game, you're winning that football game. The other touchdown that they had was on the Giants offense. So it was the Saints defense that took that fumble from Scat and ran it back for a touchdown. So the Giants defense, look, they didn't get pressure, which they should have. There were a lot of missed holding calls, though. I mean, if you watch some of the film, it's honestly embarrassing, the fact that this crew did not spot it, because Abdul Carter's getting yanked around the neck and no one's doing anything, which is insane behavior. But it's not an excuse. They need to get pressure, and that needs to be improved upon. But, like I said, they did a good job of holding this team in the red zone. They had a really good red zone defense. The fact that they forced multiple field goals and only allowed 1 touchdown is a big deal. So obviously Shane Bowen, some tough play calls there. The DPIs, unacceptable. Tyler Nubin misjudging the right angle for the Rashid Shaheed touchdown. Unacceptable, right? There were obviously things that went wrong. But ultimately, when you hold a team to 1 touchdown offensively, you should win that game. So the offense obviously was the problem in this game. And how about special teams? What a great game. Jamie Gillen, Jude McAtumney, I got it right that time. Excellent job. Tay Banks, even as a returner, I'll give credit where credit's due. It seems like that's the only thing that he's good at on a football team. Did a great job. He averaged around 40 plus yards on his return. So he did a really great job in that instance. So, special teams and defense did enough. It was obviously the offense getting 5 turnovers in 1 game that you just can't come back from, no matter how much your defense and special teams help and do the best that they can to try to win the game. So overall, the offense lost the game, but I still think that there were some good things that ultimately came out of this game, and I think that needs to be highlighted a little bit. But we're turning the page now, because the Giants take on the Eagles on Thursday, and here's the injury report from Monday. Now, Monday's practice for both teams was just a walkthrough, so participation is a projection, but I think it's probably pretty accurate based on Sunday's game. So for the Giants, if they practiced, they would have had 4 players that did not practice. Swayze Bozeman, the linebacker with an ankle injury, who left the game early. Jermaine Illuminor dealing with a back injury. This is something new. We did not hear about this during the game, so let's hope he's ready. The only consolation prize, if you will, is that if, God forbid, Jermaine Illuminor cannot play on Thursday, at least we have Marcus Bowe. So we have a swing tackle who's played tackle and who's done a relatively nice job so far. So let's hope that's not the case, but if it is, again, at least it's not Joshua Zudu, right? Or Evan Neal. Next up, linebacker Demetrius Flanagan-Foles dealing with a hamstring injury. He also did not end up traveling with the team on Saturday due to this injury. He was downgraded to out, so he would have not practiced today. And lastly is Darius Slayton, who would have not practiced today. So that's concerning. I don't think we're going to see him on Thursday. Hamstring injuries are notoriously tricky, and on a quick turnaround time, I don't think we're going to see Slayton, so at least we can expect a little Jordan Humphrey elevation, maybe even Emir Smith-Marset. And then these guys would have been limited. Dane Belton, shoulder, Jackson Dart, hamstring, Devon Holland, calf, Newbin, groin, Phillips, hip, Tyrone Tracy Jr., shoulder. So if Tyrone Tracy Jr. is limited, he's trending in the right direction for Sunday, but I'm not entirely sold on him being able to play just yet. But I want to talk through the Eagles injury report because this is, of course, very interesting. Again, same thing with them, just a projection because it was a walkthrough. Saquon Barkley did not practice with a knee. Grant Calcaterra did not practice with an oblique. Landon Dickerson did not practice with an ankle. Then Jihad Campbell with a biceps injury, limited. Byron Young, triceps, limited. And then Nakobe Dean dealing with a knee, full participant. Now, of course, before we get all too excited, after Saquon Barkley pops up on the injury report, is a tweet from Ian Rappaport. Source on Saquon Barkley. He had general soreness coming out of the game and fully expects to play Thursday night against the Giants. Because of course he's going to play Thursday night. Why on ever would he not be ready to play on Thursday? Because that's just the Giants' luck. So that's where we're at. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about the Giants versus the Eagles, a little bit of preview. And then on Thursday we're going to talk about players to watch. And, you know, we're going to hope that we just don't get blown out and maybe we can be competitive, because at this rate, that's where we're at with the Giants. So stay tuned for more. Subscribe for more Giants latest.